Hello, you're watching the Midday Report on TVP World. My name is Sasha Farbach. U.S. President Donald Trump has said he is with NATO all the way at the meeting of alliance leaders in The Hague. This comes as European countries have committed to increasing their defense spending to a level not seen in decades. Our correspondent Alex Kadir is in The Hague for us now. So Alex, how significant will this increase in defense spending be for the NATO alliance?
Well, Sasha, when it comes to Europe and Canada, we're looking at levels of defense spending not seen in 50 years, not since the Cold War, and certainly not since the Second World War. In the case of Canada, it would have been since the Korean War. And even then, they would have been teetering around that 4 to 5% mark. Now, of course, that depends on the individual countries and the history of their defense spending. But the target set back in 2014 for NATO allies was 2%. Now you are looking at 3.5% on core defense spending. That is the defense spending, military spending as we know it. On top of that, 1.5% on protecting critical infrastructure and investing and making sure civilian structures and populations are ready for a possible conflict. It is a significant jump, of course, one done at the urging of the US president to hope that his attention and his support of the NATO alliance continues. He was asked about that a few moments ago. This is what he had to say.
We're with them all the way. I mean, if you take a look at the numbers, we're with them, and they have very big things to announce today. I don't know if you've taken the vote or you're going to take the vote, but I've been asking them to go up to 5% for a number of years, and they're going up to 5%, and that's a big, from 2%. And a lot of people didn't even pay the 2%. So I think that's going to be very big news. NATO is going to become very strong with us, and I appreciate doing it.
Well, we will hear more from Donald Trump in the next hour, but it seems for now that the fears that there could be a rift between the US president and the rest of the NATO alliance have been cooled. Nevertheless, there is now the difficult work, the long yards, as the UK Defence Secretary told me earlier today, about exactly how that money will be spent and in boosting those defence capabilities, particularly in Europe, facing the Russian threat. Sasha?
Indeed, those long yards ahead. I mean, it's an ambitious target. We'll see how that's going to be actually implemented. Thanks so much for that update there from The Hague. Alex Kadir, appreciate it. Now, Polish Prime Minister Donald Tusk is traveling to The Hague and Brussels this week for high-level talks with NATO and EU leaders. His visit involves a meeting of Ukraine's key European partners, as well as a two-day European Council summit. Tusk will join the leaders of France, Germany, the UK and Italy in The Hague on Wednesday for a closed-door meeting on Ukraine, convened at the invitation of NATO Secretary General Mark Rutte. President Volodymyr Zelensky is also expected to take part in the talks, which will focus on the prospects for peace negotiations with Russia. On Thursday, the Polish Prime Minister will take part in the European Council summit in Brussels, with topics including defense, migration, economic resilience, and the situation in Ukraine and the Middle East. Leaders are also set to discuss a fresh package of sanctions against Russia's energy and financial sectors. Falcon 9, the SpaceX craft carrying Polish astronaut Sławosz Uznański-Wiśniewski, has officially entered Earth's orbit and is currently at an altitude of around 220 kilometers, traveling to dock at the International Space Station. Right now, the Dragon spacecraft is flying over the African continent. Following liftoff, the Falcon 9 rocket reached a speed of over 27,500 kilometers an hour, marking its maximum velocity. Uznański-Wiśniewski briefly addressed the Polish nation with a heartfelt message. The long-delayed mission carries 4 astronauts, including Uznański-Wiśniewski, who will become the first Pole aboard the ISS. Over the course of the mission, the Polish astronaut will conduct 13 scientific experiments. The crew is expected to arrive at the station at around 1 p.m. CEST on Thursday. Safety always comes first, stressed Frank Devin, a program manager for the European Space Agency, in an exclusive interview with TVP World when asked what happens once the astronauts on board SpaceX Falcon 9 rocket reach the ISS.
So it takes about a day to get to the International Space Station, and then after arrival, once they dock, of course, there is the welcome by the crew. The first thing is always to see, okay, the safety procedure. Safety always comes first, so they will get a tour from the commander of the International Space Station that explains a little bit all the safety issues that they need to take care of. And then they start working. Sławosz has a very big experimental program, 13 Polish experiments that he will need to execute, also some ESA experiments, Honor experiments, Indian experiments. So it will be a very, very busy mission for him.
Following the liftoff of the Axiom 4 space mission to the International Space Station with Polish astronaut Sławosz Uznański-Wiśniewski aboard, TVP World spoke to the Chief Strategy Officer of Axiom to discuss the objectives of the mission and the company's long-term goals.
We're building the first commercial space station. In 2020, we won the opportunity to build our space station attached to the ISS, so we'll launch our first module in 27. And then along the way, we were always going to build a spacesuit, but we won the opportunity to build NASA's spacesuit, so we're building a spacesuit as well. And then these private astronaut missions we consider precursor missions. So they're helping us, one, develop customers. They help us develop a workforce that knows how to prepare research and payloads for flight, how to train crew, all the things that we're going to need when we have our own space station. There are just so many things that we need humans to do. One, the cognitive ability to reason through things, but there are a lot of experiments that just require human dexterity to manipulate and do those sort of testing. And we ultimately want to be a human-tended space station. And so those astronauts are very, very important.
Our correspondent Piotr Ołowski is currently on the Florida coast near the Kennedy Space Center and has this report for us.
Dr. Sławosz Uznański-Wiśniewski, the second Polish astronaut in history who is a part of Axiom 4 mission, is on his way to the International Space Station. It takes around 28 hours for the Dragon capsule to reach the ISS. The Polish part of the mission is called Ignis, and it's funded by the Polish government. As we've been told by the co-founder of the Axiom Space, Kam Garafian, numerous countries are participating in the mission.
31 countries involved in this, and then about 68 different experiments that we are going to perform on the space station. But more importantly, having astronauts from Poland, from Hungary, from India that have not been in space the last 40 years, and for the first time taking them back to space, and for the first time into International Space Station, incredibly significant, and especially the international collaboration.
The Axiom 4 crew is planning to work on the International Space Station for 2 weeks. The main point of the mission is research and to educate the younger population and to inspire people. This is the part of the Axiom Space's bigger plan to build a private space station which will replace the International Space Station. Reporting from Kennedy Space Center for TVP World, Piotr Orłowski.
At least 3 people suffered injuries and many residential buildings were damaged in Russia's latest attack on multiple regions of Ukraine.
Russia launched yet another attack on Ukraine on Wednesday morning, targeting Kharkiv. At least 1 person was wounded. The strike also triggered multiple fires in residential buildings. This follows a Russian overnight attack on Zaporizhia, which left 2 people wounded and caused significant damage to at least 9 houses and vehicles.
We heard everything, and I could see it all from the bedroom window, the flashes. It went bang, bang. The explosions were powerful, not just loud, but really frightening.
Emergency teams rushed to the scenes to help residents of both cities. Local authorities have once again urged citizens not to ignore air raid alerts, as attacks remain frequent and often occur at night when civilians are most vulnerable.
Russia's key military-industrial site, the Atlant Aero Plant in Tagarog in the Rostov region, was damaged overnight by, quote, something unknown, which flew into the facility, according to Ukraine's National Security and Defense Council. This comes amid Russian reports of Ukrainian drones targeting the area.
Following an explosion, a massive fire broke out at the plant, which manufactures drones, including space-grade UAVs, as well as related equipment. Meanwhile, Russian authorities reported a wave of Ukrainian drone attacks across multiple regions overnight, including Rostov. The regional governor said in a statement that while there were no casualties, the strikes allegedly caused a fire at a sports complex and damaged a high school and 2 residential buildings in Taganrog.
Norway will deploy F-35 fighter jets to Poland to protect the country's airspace. This is according to Polish Defense Minister Władysław Kosiniak-Kamysz, who made the statement ahead of day 2 of the NATO Summit in The Hague on Wednesday.
I spoke with the Norwegian defense minister, and Norway has once again decided to dispatch F-35 fighter jets to Poland later this year to patrol and safeguard Polish airspace. More and more airspace violations are taking place over the Baltic Sea. Not only Poland, but all NATO member states experience such incidents, and therefore Allied support is especially needed.
In Armenia, a coup attempt was thwarted. It was supposed to be plotted by the Archbishop of the Armenian Apostolic Church, Bagrat Gastanian. The news was broken today by Armenian Prime Minister Nikol Pashinyan on his Telegram channel. According to Armenian officials, the Archbishop was detained and is facing charges of organizing a coup. Searches are also underway in the homes of the Archbishop and about 30 people who were supposed to be his accomplices. Last year, Gastanian, the cleric accused of staging the coup, led a movement that demanded the Prime Minister's resignation over his ceding of territory to Azerbaijan. Denmark has officially joined a defense partnership with Canada, Germany, and Norway aimed at strengthening security in the North Atlantic. The move is widely seen as a response to U.S. criticism over Denmark's handling of Greenland's defense. Defense Minister Troels Lund Poulsen signed the agreement during a NATO summit in The Hague, emphasizing that the partnership will deliver faster, better, and more operational results in the region. He highlighted that the collaboration will also boost innovation in military forces and the defense industry, particularly in adapting to the Arctic's harsh conditions. The agreement concludes joint procurement and shared use of equipment such as reconnaissance aircraft. As Poland debates the future of its armed forces, a similar conversation is gaining traction across the western border. With Germany struggling to achieve its military recruitment goals, the government is taking bold steps to reverse the trend. From potential mandatory service for men to talks of including women on the roster, Germany's conscription debate is heating up.
Will Germany reintroduce conscription? The country's defense minister Boris Pistorius said that if a voluntary model to meet recruitment goals fails, a stricter option would be considered.
They will move on to another model where they will, as they say, put in obligatory elements. What those exactly are not so clear, as the draft of the law is not finished. I would imagine that it's not going to be a full-fledged conscription that everybody will be called up automatically.
Based on a 2024 survey which indicates that only 23% of Germans would be willing to fight for their country, a tougher model is not inconceivable. Patrick Sensberg, president of Germany's Reservists Association, went a step further and reportedly proposed holding a referendum on whether women should also be subject to conscription. But that may not be so likely.
When it comes to the obligation for women, we know the model that we have upcoming will first only be for men. That seems to be the wide expectation. Germany doesn't really have many public referendums altogether, so I can't imagine that they would have a referendum just based on that one issue itself.
Some states, like Norway, already have compulsory military service for women. In 2015, Norway became the first European and NATO country to adopt universal conscription. Polish armed forces include over 21,000 women, accounting for almost 15% of the entire military. The service is not mandatory, but military training for women may have positive aspects.
It means that women will be empowered to be resilient, to take care, to know how to take care of their kids and themselves. Women are more than 50% of society. How you can imagine to build a comprehensive defense with leaving such a huge group in behind.
In Poland, women of certain professions relevant to the military may be summoned for mandatory qualification intended to assess their readiness for service. Despite the absence of compulsory military service in Poland, the Homeland Defense Act allows for reinstatement during times of crisis. For TVP World, I'm Sonia Gatabiszczan.
And that concludes this midday report here on TVP World, but stay tuned, much more coming up right here. Goodbye.